What happens when the propaganda machine gets a software upgrade? Today I'm sitting down with Bill O'Reilly, media legend, historian, and best-selling author of Confronting Evil. We're having a no-holds-barred conversation about how history's darkest regimes are echoing in our age of algorithms. We unpack how overheated political rhetoric, Gestapo references, demonization, and othering to unify the base is no longer just words. ICE detention centers shot up, mobs whipped into fury, political assassinations, real violence in the streets. We discuss who's writing that narrative, which politicians are stoking those fires, and how close are we to waking up in a world where the truth is the first casualty. Plus, Bill gives us an inside look at his private meeting with the CCP, an audacious move to diffuse U.S.-China tensions. Welcome to the fight for truth. Let's get started.
Keeping it real with Jillian Michaels.
Bill O'Reilly, the master, the legend. How are you, sir?
You know, I'm the same, Jillian, and that's just a tragedy for everybody. And people go, are you ever going to change? And I go, probably not. It's just too much therapy bills and all that. I probably not.
I hope you never change. I got to be honest, my heart's been hurting with the state of the world right now. And of course, you've got the new book, Confronting Evil, which I just got, and I'm incredibly excited to dive into. I just finished confronting the presidents. But the question I want to start out with, in your lifetime, doing everything that you do, I imagine you've seen it all. Have you ever experienced a political climate this contentious and this scary and this chaotic with this kind of violent rhetoric?
Yeah, in the Vietnam era from 68 to 72, that 4-year period, there was unbelievable violence. Black Panthers, terrorists blowing things up, a big movement to attack the police, divided nation, almost 50-50 over the Vietnam War, draft dodgers, families broken up, bodies coming back from Southeast Asia, wounded, coming back. Nobody knew why we were there. A president that was not honest, LBJ, and then another president, Richard Nixon, was not widely liked by the American public, even though he was elected to calm things down. So this has... and I remember it vividly. I was in college, and now we're in a different cycle of hatred because it's just one man that's generating the hatred, and that's Donald Trump. Whereas there was a war back in the 60s and early 70s. So it's different. The level of emotion is different, but it is intense. And now we're seeing it play out in the murder of Charlie Kirk and attacks on various people and institutions. So we're all praying it doesn't get worse, but it could.
I don't see anything being toned down. In fact, there isn't a day that goes by where I don't see a prominent political figure race baiting, calling people fascists and Nazis, othering the other side, calling the other side evil. And I'm not trying to fence sit here. I unquestionably at this point see far more of this happening on the left. I think the right has been guilty of it to some extent. And I appreciate that historically they have been responsible for more political violence. But I would imagine as of late, it's predominantly very far radicalized left. But when you've got Hillary Clinton saying that white men of a certain faith are the problem in our country.
The idea that you could turn the clock back and try to recreate a world that never was, dominated by, let's say it, white men of a certain persuasion, a certain religion, a certain point of view, a certain ideology, is just doing such damage.
And then you've got Ilhan Omar saying we should profile white men.
I would say our country should be more fearful of white men across our country, because they are actually causing most of the deaths within this country.
And then you've got Gavin Newsom saying that ICE is President Trump's private army and making authoritarian references, calling people fascists. He recently called Stephen Miller a fascist and tripled down. He did it 3 times in a row on X. This to me is not toning things down. This to me is ratcheting things up. Is this hyperbole what I'm seeing, or are you seeing this as well and you're equally alarmed?
I'm not that alarmed about the politicians because they have always engaged in this kind of stuff. Newsom obviously can't run on how he ran the state of California because it's a disaster. So what Newsom is doing is he's taking the Donald Trump playbook of demonizing the opposition, and he's the avenger now. See, Trump was the avenger for conservatives, MAGA people. He was the avenger. That's why he got elected. A populist avenger. I'm going to go in, drain the swamp, get all these radicals out of there. And that's what he's trying to do. Newsom's saying, I can do that, but I'll just do it on the other end.
Right.
I'll say these are fascist, Gestapo, and I'm going to get rid of them. And I'm going to heighten up the rhetoric, just like Trump did. I mean, Trump should sue Newsom for plagiarism. He's taking out the same playbook. And he's just using it on another area. So here's the difference. And it's a little bit worrisome, but I still believe that most Americans are good people. I say 15% of us are evil, and that's across the world too. And you got to watch those 15% because there's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Right? We got 340 million people in this country. You got, 15% are evil. You're talking around 50 million people. So you got to be alert. All right. And evil is when you hurt another human being, you're hurting them. You do it on purpose and you don't feel remorse. And if you know a person like that, stay away. But anyway, you got this social media now, and this is the key to this. So back in the Vietnam days that we just talked about, you didn't have that. What you had was a sympathetic media to the anti-war movement, but not crazy. Walter Cronkite was in there and the television, this and that. So there wasn't a central meeting place for the loons. Okay?
Uh-huh.
Now there is. And we saw that with Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin. His own family said he was radicalized by going to dark recesses of this social media.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, if you are a mentally ill person, and all these people are, across the board, Putin's mentally ill. All right, if you're a mentally ill person, and then you go into a forum where there are other mentally ill people encouraging you to act out whatever psychosis you have, that's dangerous. And you can't do anything about it because of the First Amendment.
Right.
And so it's on the families, it's on the neighborhood to kind of signal this stuff. I'd love to talk to that alleged assassin's father, who was a sheriff's deputy in Utah. I would say, didn't you try to do an intervention here? If it were my kid, I'd probably chain him in the basement someplace. If I saw this kind of lunacy growing, because then you become dangerous. So that's social media now. That's whole new stuff.
Right.
And we got to keep an eye on that.
I want to understand the propaganda piece, because social media, I imagine, then facilitates propaganda on crack. When you wrote Confronting Evil, I imagine it's the Hitlers, of course, and the Pol Pots and the Maos, and you're going to tell me all of that. But Elon Musk said this. Hitler didn't kill 6 million Jews. And of course, everybody called him an anti-Semite. But what he meant was, despite the fact that this man is sick and evil, he alone could not kill 6 million Jews. He bred crazy in people with, I'm guessing, propaganda. Like, how did Hitler get an entire country to kill 6 million Jews and go to war with the world? And are you seeing any of those parallels now anywhere today, including our country?
Sure, Putin. Why do the Russian people allow him to invade a sovereign country at the expense of 1 million Russian casualties? What's wrong with the Russian people? What's wrong with them? Obviously, got a psychopath running the show over there. The bodies are coming back. For what? Why is this happening? Persia, which is Iran. Why are the Persian people continuing to allow their government to finance terrorism and kill hundreds of thousands of people all over the world? Why? And in Germany, and the biggest ethnic group in America are German Americans. And if you go to Germany, the same as we are, they speak a different language, but there's not a big difference in how they conduct their daily activities over there. 90% of the German people in 1934 voted to give Hitler dictatorial powers, knowing that he wrote a book that said, I'm going to wipe out a whole bunch of people when I become dictator. Okay? They knew 90%. And that's because they looked away. The German people looked away. So they were all suffering because of the Depression, Great Depression, the Treaty of Versailles, where Germany was emasculated after World War I. German people didn't have anything, and they were angry. And here comes the guy, goes, we're the master race, right? Don't you want to be the master race? That's what we are. And everyone went, yeah, we want to be the master race. So go ahead, make us the master race. 100 million dead in World War II. So if an individual or a country embrace evil, and a lot of it's just looking away from it. Maybe Adolf isn't the best, but he's better than the others. You've heard all the excuses, okay? That's when evil becomes unchained. And so my book is, A, you got to recognize what evil is. And here are 15 miscreants. I mean, the worst of the worst. And here's how they got there. And B, if you can, you got to do something about it.
Can you tell me how they got there?
That's what we're selling here.
I'm trying to understand the how they got their piece. And the one element that I'm seeing in our culture right now is this moral inversion where people celebrate Luigi Mangione killing the head of United Healthcare, the CEO of United Healthcare. They're dancing and celebrating at the death of Charlie Kirk. And you've got this YouGov poll that has now gone viral where a pretty decent percentage of young people on the far left justify political violence. And the only thing I can make of it is that, oh, well, you're a Nazi and you're a fascist and ICE is Gestapo, so I'm actually this great hero by killing these people or attacking an ICE facility. Are they brainwashing people, or do you think really the vast majority of it is looking away, or it's some combination of these things?
Well, there's a lot of ignorance involved in America right now. The public school system doesn't teach history or civics any longer to any effective degree. The urchins don't know anything. If you go out today, Jillian, in LA, where you are, and you go, who's the vice president? Maybe 30% of people under 25 will know. They don't know anything. And they hear things from their friends, and they're on the internet and all of that. So their opinions are formed in varying ways that really aren't educated. So we have a guy named Mamdani running for mayor in New York City, largest city in the country.
Yeah.
And he's a communist.
Yeah.
The guy's a communist. And that means he wants to use the government to take people's wealth. And he said it last night on CNN. I want to take people's wealth, take it, and give it to other people who don't have a lot. That's what communism is. And that's what he is. In addition to being a communist, he doesn't want to enforce the law. No, the justice system's racist. The cops just want to bust black people or other minorities. So we're not going to do that. And we're not going to, if you're a violent criminal, there's all kinds of excuses for that and mitigating that. And we're going to cut $1 billion from the police budget in New York City. Well, what do you think is going to happen? Okay. You're going to have bodies piled up. You're going to have unbelievable narcotics use in public. You're going to have danger everywhere. Yet Mamdani could win the election because the people who support him are not aware enough. And that's the key word, aware enough to know what's around the corner here, because they're diverted. They live in a bubble world. They don't live in the real world, but they're going to get a heavy dose of reality soon.
Would you intervene? I've seen many billionaires talk about, we got to get behind one candidate. We just saw Adams drop out. People are wondering if Trump's going to get involved and make some deal to Silwa to drop out. And then I've seen other billionaires like Tyler Winklevoss say, give them what they're voting for. This is America. Let them learn their lesson. But the concern is all the innocent people that didn't vote for this and can't pick up and leave. Capital is mobile. All the rich people already went to Florida. So what would be the right thing to do in your opinion?
The people who say, well, they get what they deserve, there's going to be a lot of dead people.
Right.
There's going to be a lot of people raped. And I can't sit by and justify that because of you want to make a political point. So what Trump will do if Mamdani is elected is it'll just stop all federal aid coming in, which will be more of a disaster for the city. But the point is that evil needs two things, okay, to really prosper. It needs good people to not pay attention, to be apathetic. I don't want to get involved with that. I don't want to do that. And it needs gullible, maybe dumb people to sign on. Yeah, I'm signing on for that. That's what happened in Cuba. Fidel Castro, Mamdani's campaign, by the way, in New York is modeled on Castro's campaign in Cuba in the late 1950s, where I'm not a communist. No. I'm just going to get rid of Batista's corrupt, which he was.
Yes.
And then I'm going to give people a better life. How's that worked out? Okay. Nobody got a better life in Cuba except Castro and his cronies.
Right. And historically speaking, that's been the case throughout history. And you look at North Korea, South Korea. But
there's not one socialist communist nation has prospered in the whole world.
Okay, so you've got the good people that don't want to get involved. And I understand why. Man, you try to get involved and they hit you with every pejorative under the sun. You're a Zionist. If you worry about anti-Semitism due to unfounded, baseless conspiracy theories involving, let's say, Israel being behind 9/11, you're a genocidal Zionist. You try to get involved with race baiting, and no, you're an inherent racist. Like, no matter what you try to do, for me, when I've tried to help people of color lose weight, you're an ableist and a racist. It's the craziest thing in the world. So you can see why good people are afraid to get in the mix. Do you think, and now I'm going to put on my tin hat for a second, do you think that's by design, that there's something to this unification of power, unifying the base against a common enemy, and if somebody speaks out, they disrupt the plan. So how do we shut them up? How do we sit them down so I can continue doing what I'm doing? Am I being conspiratorial about this in thinking that this is by design?
No, there's a book by Saul Alinsky, Rules for Radicals, and it says exactly that. When you have an opponent who's not buying into the radical left agenda of socialism, communism, and permissive behavior and no real law enforcement, then you destroy that person. Look, I've been doing this for more than 30 years, national commentary, and I got attacked every single day of my life by some, slander, defamation, all of that. And I used to take it on when I was at Fox. And then I decided, that's just giving these people power that are attacking me. So I'm going to pick and choose my battles now. I got 6 attorneys, Jillian, and you mess with me now, you're in court. And I've won all my cases. I'm not going to get into them because they were in a sealed situation of arbitration. And but I and my family were, I know what Trump is going through because I went through it. I told him before he ran for president, I said, look, you know what they've done to me or tried to do.
Yeah.
And they succeeded to a small extent, but, I'm not going to let the bastards get me down. So I pop right up and I'm stronger now than I ever have been.
Without question.
But they tried, and they'll try to, if you go against the far left orthodoxy, they will come after you. And the far right will too, but it's a different thing because they don't have centralized power in this country. Far right doesn't have that. The far left has the media sympathies. The media sympathizes with that movement, which is a tremendous cudgel. And then they have the Soros people that are pumping billions and billions of dollars. Let me give you one more example, and this will hit home to you because you're in the entertainment business and you live in Los Angeles. The Jimmy Kimmel story was not reported honestly. He was not reinstated because Disney suddenly had a freedom of speech awareness or was afraid of the federal government encroaching on Disney's ability to do business. That's not why Kimmel was reinstated. He was reinstated because the giant talent agencies in Los Angeles told the CEO of Disney, Bob Iger, you put Kimmel back or we're not going to do business with you anymore. You're not going to get actors, directors, writers, or anything. Yesterday in the Wall Street Journal, I broke that story last week, 7 days ago. The Journal picked up my reporting, didn't credit me, of course, and wrote a long article about how Iger was threatened by these far left people who run the talent agencies. And if you're a talent, what television, movies, or anything like that, you need an agent.
Mm-hmm.
All right? That agent negotiates your deal, finds you work.
Yeah.
If the agent says, we're not taking it to Disney because they're fascists, they booted Jimmy, Disney's going to get hurt. And that's why Iger and Disney surrendered.
Cooler days call for layers that last, and Quince is my go-to for quality essentials that feel cozy, look refined, but won't blow your budget. Think $50 Mongolian cashmere, premium denim that fits like a dream, luxury outerwear that you can wear year after year because these are the pieces that turn into your fall uniform. I'm personally eyeing the wool coats because they look designer level, but they cost a fraction of the price. And honestly, the quality is just as good, if not better. And the way they do this is that they directly go to top tier ethical factories and they cut out the middlemen. So they deliver luxury quality pieces at half the price of similar brands. It's the kind of upgrade with your wardrobe that feels smart, stylish, and effortless. I find my fall staples at Quince, and you can go to quince.com/Jillian for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/Jillian to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/Jillian. You know, after I was on CNN saying like, you cannot lay all the evils of the world, at the feet of just one race. And I was talking about the history of slavery over thousands of years. And of course, CNN did their best to spin it and lie and manipulate the narrative. CAA, who represented me for speaking engagements, basically dropped me the next day.
There you go.
I mean,
that's a shame.
like, well, that's a shame. I was like, that's a shame, but okay. And you realize there's not a day that goes by where people are like, oh, I hope you're getting paid. And I think if you had any idea how much trying to do the right thing, trying to tell the truth as far as I see it, how much that has cost, you would know to the nth degree. And it seems like there's a playbook, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but it seems like first we smear you publicly and we hit you with every pejorative. RFK eats dogs. Newsweek printed that. this one's a racist, that one's an ableist, that one's a rapist. We've seen all of it. If that doesn't work, they litigate you into the ground. They just sue you and sue you and sue you and sue you and try to bankrupt you and take all your time and all your money and all your resources. And if that doesn't work, in the very rare case, it seems like violence becomes an option. Now, again, I realize I could be wrapping myself in tinfoil here and so far down the rabbit hole, but is there... You think... Crazy? It's the book. This is the game. But then what do we do? How do you fight back if that's a reality for people?
Well, you can fight back because there's more opportunity now to go independent with the ability to do what I do, which is an independent news agency. And we have YouTube and we have all kinds of distribution because we make people a lot of money. But I'm going to agree with Hillary Clinton here on the Jillian Michaels podcast. There are a lot of bad white men, and a lot of them are in Hollywood.
And
they do this stuff all the time.
You know,
and they're all white.
I get it.
They're all white.
I get that. But their narrative is race baiting. And that makes me very scared. And I've been very vocal about this because when you demonize an entire race of people, I don't see them handling it well, and I see it breeding true racism down the line, and this race baiting has become a very popular narrative. You know, we just saw Newsom talking about how ICE is vanishing Black and brown people. And it's like, see what the evil white Gestapo of the Orange Man is doing, his own personal private army. He's vanishing innocent, and it's just... It's terrifying. And I wonder, when you look at all of the people you covered in confronting evil, was any of it founded on lies? So in other words, what I mean by that is Newsom says ICE is the Gestapo and it's Trump's private army. Unless I bumped my head, doesn't ICE swear an oath to the Constitution? Aren't they enforcing laws enacted by Congress? And if you don't like the laws, which is completely understandable, wouldn't the argument be about reform instead of shooting up an ICE facility?
Well, look, people that are favoring the Biden policy of open borders, let everybody in the world come here unsupervised, they're going to just, go nuts when Trump comes in and says no more open border. And if you have an order of deportation, remember, the people being deported have to have an order of deportation signed by a judge. And then they're deported. They're not just picking them up and throwing them into a bus and driving them to Tijuana.
That's what Newsom's saying. He's saying they're vanishing them.
Right. But you never know that by the reportage from the left that sympathizes with the Newsoms. And Pritzker said today the Chicago thing, which is about violent crime mostly, thereafter there's a crime of not being white. That's what this, and I'm just.
But that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's
I
all
know.
race baiting.
I'm at the point in my life now. If you don't know why these people are doing, I can't help you anymore. If you don't know that eating 10 chocolate bars a day is going to make you fat, I can't do anything for you. And if you don't know what Pritzker is going to throw this stuff out, what can I say? I make fun of Pritzker. He's the worst governor by far. He's worse than Newsom.
Really?
But
gosh,
believe me, this guy. And here's why he's worse. In Chicago, Cook County, it's like LA where you live. It's a Democratic stronghold like New York City. And for more than a decade, thousands of poor people have been murdered, mostly on the south side of Chicago, 80% African American.
I know that.
They've been murdered by drug gangs, heavily armed, younger Black men who basically fight over turf. If you call the police on these gangs, they'll kill you and your family, like the cartels in Mexico. These are unbelievably evil people. Pritzker has been governor, 8 years? He's not done one thing to mitigate all of that murder. Not one thing. Yet, when Trump offers another blanket of protection for those poor black people by sending federal authorities to Chicago, as he did in D.C., Pritzker calls him a Nazi.
Same in Portland.
I mean, if that's not evil, then I don't know what evil is. I didn't have enough room to put Pritzker on the cover of my book. He's a little too hefty. And I had to get Putin in there, and I had to get the Ayatollah in there. Okay. But come on.
Mm-hmm.
How absurd is this?
Right.
Even if you hate Trump, you would think that another layer of protection to cut down homicides in the south side of Chicago would be welcome. No.
Why do they want chaos when you see the images of Portland, when you see the images of Chicago?
Because it's not presented them that way. The way I just presented it to you and your audience, it's not presented to the people in the south side that way. And the churches control the message there with the black women. And they basically sell grievance, not only in Chicago, but in every liberal city with a heavy minority population. These preachers get up there and go, hey, not your fault. It's not the drug dealer's fault. I mean, slavery made it impossible for you to prosper in America. That's what they're selling, this grievance thing. And that's where people take. And so it's hard to generalize about a voting public, but there's no doubt that if Black Americans would take another look at the Democratic Party and vote for, I'm not saying you should vote for Republicans or whatever. I'm just saying vote for people who are going to help you.
Yeah.
Pritzker's not going to help you.
Right.
He had plenty of time and he didn't do anything.
I think a big part of the problem, as you mentioned, if I have to tell you so many times not to eat 20 candy bars, right, there's nothing I can do. But I wonder, as a newsman, as the newsman, if you are alarmed at how much misinformation is in the zeitgeist, in particular in new media. And now it's a bit distressing because everybody felt like, well, legacy media is lying and they're all bought off and they have an agenda. We're going to new media and everybody here is independent and they just want the truth. But the problem is some of those individuals traffic in misinformation for clicks and it's working. So now
to some extent.
You've got the propaganda piece on steroids. But we don't, because of the First Amendment, you can't silence any of that or any of the hate speech. So what do we do about that part of it?
Well, the education system has to rise. But remember, 77 people voted for Donald Trump. 77 million people voted for him. So the propaganda machine on the far left, it succeeds to some extent, particularly among younger people who are disengaged from, standard news. They don't read newspapers. They get all their information. But 77 million is a lot of folks. And they are very, very skeptical of this far left movement, which is why the Democratic Party is in such trouble.
Okay.
So it's not a fait accompli that the country's going over the cliff. But the only way to counter the misinformation and the propaganda on both sides, okay, is the education system doing its job. That people need to know that, for example, Donald Trump has a perfect right to send federal troops to any area of the United States if American citizens are in danger and the local authorities won't do anything about it. And yet, 1871, U.S. Grant sent federal troops to South Carolina to destroy the Ku Klux Klan. And they did. But that is precedent. So if any of these cases ever get to the Supreme Court, Trump's going to win this. Do you think any kid knows that?
I didn't know that.
The teacher doesn't even know it. So you got to kind of ramp up the information flow in public schools and private to the children so they understand the world, because they don't now.
Right. When you were writing this book, which character throughout history was the worst of the worst in your opinion, and why?
Mao Zedong was the worst mass murderer who's ever been on the planet. 20 million. Chinese, he killed his own people. And he starved many of them to death because he wanted to restructure the whole Chinese economy and the way that people lived. There's nobody that comes close to Mao Zedong. The Ayatollah Khomeini co-opted an entire religion, Islam, for the purposes of murder. And that, I mean, you know, if there is a heaven and hell and judgment day, come on. Hitler was Hitler. He killed millions of people, emotionally disturbed, on and on. And that chapter, everybody thinks they know about Hitler. You don't really know about him personally. We get very personal in all of these chapters about who these people really were, what their thought process. But there's just one after the other, after the other, after the other. Okay, Genghis Khan. People go, what? Genghis Khan? Who's that? Genghis Khan was second to Mao Zedong, a mass murderer from the Pacific Ocean in China all the way to Hungary. This guy just came in and just cut people's heads off with his Mongol army. And that resonates to this day. That's why China is so paranoid, because of Genghis Khan. That's why they put the Great Wall up.
Of course.
So it all links in. My entire book, Confronting Evil, links into the present day. That was the one thing that binds all these 15 miscreants together. What they did still resonates today. The slave traders in America, that you still have the legacy of that.
Yes.
The robber barons, Rockefeller, J.P. Morgan, you still have that working class attitude that we're getting hosed because of those guys. Teddy Roosevelt beat them, but it was a brutal fight. So anyway, I'm proud of the book. I think if people read the book, they'll understand what evil is, and then they have a choice. I'm either going to try to mitigate it where I live, or I'm not.
Last question. When you look at Kim Jong-un, Xi Jinping, Putin, now that the world has nuclear capabilities, obviously we pussyfoot around these psychos, or at least it seems like it. We're not able to go straight to war with a Putin. We're doing it via proxy war through Ukraine. How would you handle this? Because you've got these little pockets of darkness. Like, we're not going to do a regime change in Iran. It seems like that has never worked, and innocent people will die, and we just waste hundreds of billions of dollars. But then what do you do? What do you do with the Xi Jinpings, the Ayatollah, the Kim Jong-un? How do you deal with these people? Just ignore them?
Well, I had to deal with them in May. So I got invited by the Chinese government to go to Beijing to address the Politburo. And the reason I came out is they watched me on YouTube. Now, if you're a Chinese citizen, you can't watch YouTube. Right. Biggest police state that's ever existed. You don't have access to anything over there. So Chinese people don't know what's going on, but the government does. So they watch me almost every night, and they know I have access to President Trump. So they invited me to go to Beijing, 3 hours of Q&A, them asking me, if we do this, what will President Trump do? I didn't go as a representative of the American government. I did tell President Trump I was going, and I told the Chinese that after I came back, if I came back, I'd have to debrief the president, which I did. I took my 21-year-old political science son with me, and I sat there, and I answered their questions. And it was an amazing experience. And I put forth to them that there was a real chance that the United States and China could enter into what I call a partnership for peace and prosperity together. And if that happened, that a lot of the bad, evil stuff in the world would get tamped down, because nobody could stand up to China and the United States together, and the economic benefits would help both countries. Now, I couldn't have been more persuasive, Jillian.
Yeah.
I laid it out, and half of them spoke English and half of them had the headphones, but they all understood what I was saying. I said, if you want to do the best for the 1.5 Chinese people you have under your thumb, okay, this is the way to do it. Whether they respond, I have no blanket idea. But I'm a writer, I'm a historian, I'm a journalist. I know what I'm talking about. And I presented it to them, and they were very polite, very accommodating to us. And, I hope that will happen. It's possible.
Would you ever take a position in politics?
Nah, I don't like these pinheads. they don't want me. I'm going to walk in there and I'm going to have a solution to whatever problem you have. And I don't want to hear any BS. All right? So you tell me what the problem is, Jillian, and I'll give you the solution. All right? And if you don't like it, okay. But I can't sit there for meetings and listen to these. I've been in 3 cabinet meetings with President Trump. Okay? And I never offer anything unless I'm asked, ever. It's not my job to intrude on the federal government. They ask me, I give my opinion, unvarnished. I gave Barack Obama my opinion. I gave George W. Bush my opinion. I gave Bill Clinton my opinion. Take it or leave it. But I'm not somebody who's going to play the political game. I don't like the game. It bores me to tears. I think I'm much better suited bloviating on BillO'Reilly.com, writing, we are the most successful nonfiction book authors in the world. So I think what I'm doing now is what I was born to do.
Well, I'm sort of disappointed to hear that, but I really respect it and appreciate it. And you are doing yeoman's work. So, boss, where can people get more from you? Where do they get the book? How can they watch the No Spin News? Tell them everything.
Thank you for asking. So look, BillO'Reilly.com is where we live, and we have columns and messages and television show where you can access, and radio. And then we have our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Bill O'Reilly. We're more than 1 million subscribers all over the world. You can buy Confronting Evil or any of my killing books or Confronting the Presidents at Amazon or Barnes & Noble, anywhere. You get it free on BillO'Reilly.com if you sign up to be a premium or concierge member, which is a tremendous program. It will help you out a lot, enhance your life. So that's where we are. I'm working far too hard. I should be riding around a golf cart playing pickleball. But I'm still doing this.
I prefer you right where you are. We need you right where you are. We need straight shooters. We need honest actors. We need people with experience and knowledge. You are one of the few in the landscape. And I'm thankful every day that you continue doing what you're doing. Thank you so much for spending the time. And I cannot wait to dig into that book.
I appreciate it, Jillian. Let's talk again soon.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the podcast, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. And make sure to let me know what guests you want to see on in the future.